Good evening, everyone. Those of you who are present with us this evening on this beautiful day of February 9th, 2021. We're studying the book of Job. Before we begin our session this evening, we're going to begin with a prayer. So please join me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Good evening again. Make yourselves comfortable. Just going to double check that we're actually online and live. Yes, we are. We've had some technical difficulties in the past, and so I want to make sure that everything's good. All right. So this evening, we're going to study the last few verses in chapter 3, book of Job, chapter 3, and that is verses 20 through 26. And we're going to break it up in two parts, two portions of that. So let me read the first 3 verses, and then we'll do a little summary of what we have been studying since last time, and we'll focus on these verses for this evening. So chapter 3, verses 20 through 23. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, who long for death, but he does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? Okay, that's the first set of verses we're going to start this evening. And once again, just a little recap from last time. Those of you who joined us, or those who watched this video, Job, once again, after a long silence, we don't know how long that silence was, but actually was for a long time, given the fact that his friends, 3 really good friends that Job had, came from far away, and they sat with him 7 days and 7 nights in total silence, weeping and mourning together with Job. And when Job opens his mouth, the first things that we hear out of his mouth is a curse. He cursed the day that he was conceived, that he came into existence, the day that he was born, the day that that he lived, the day that he came to life, and he wished that that day never existed. And he wishes right now that his life will end. And as we explained last time, Job is cursing that which no longer exists. What exists is himself, but the day and the night that he was born, it's gone. It's history, but it's not there. So there's nothing to curse, nothing tangible, if you would. You cannot do history, you cannot undo life. And this is part of Job's way of not focusing towards God, not blaming God, but blaming an event that took place that he cannot undo, no matter how much he curses that event. So, with that in mind, and having read those first 3 verses this evening, 20 through 23, right, we will say that Job's desires, what he's praying for, what he's hoping for, are totally unrealistic. How can you curse the day that you were born? Okay? So Job, as we said, is desiring something unrealistic. Job is taking a step back and looking at his life from the time he was born all the way to the time that this calamity came upon him. And basically he's saying that was nice, but given what I'm going through, the pain and suffering, then I wish that I was not born. and enjoy all the good things that God had blessed me with: family, friends, possessions, servants, and all the good things that come with someone being blessed with such things. But in his suffering, in the pain that he's feeling, Job does something amazing. Remember again that Job never turned against God. He questioned God, why is this happening to me? And he cannot figure it out. He will, at the very end, God will reveal it to him. But at this point, he has no idea why he's suffering. But through his trial, he's teaching us a number of things, and we have seen some of them. This evening, we're going to see that Job, as he steps back and he looks beyond the good life that he had, and he looks at the pain and suffering that he's going through, he's going to consider his fellow men. He's going to consider others who are suffering, others whom he does not know, others who are far away. I mean, there's a world full of people. So he may know the family that he lost, or the friends that he has, or some fellow citizens of that village or that city, that town. But he knows that there are more people in the world, and he knows that there are more people that are suffering, more people who are living in pain. So in his suffering, he considers others who suffer as he's suffering. And those people may be nobodies. If you consider who Job was, right? All the blessings he had, all the wealth that he had, family, friends, and so forth. There are people who suffer and they're really unknown to anyone. I mean, they could be in a remote area, nobody knows about them, or they're simply servants, slaves, peasants, what have you, insignificant. Nobody cares for them. So it doesn't matter. To Job, it does not matter whether he knows them or not. What he cares is that there are people who are suffering as he is, but they cannot make them known to others, as Job made it known to everyone, to his friends who came from far away. So he's like the spokesperson for them. The feelings that he's expressing, the frustrations, the questions that he's asking, all the things that we read so far, the conversation with his wife, the messengers who came and brought him the bad news, his friends who are not talking to him at this point, but they will in the next chapter. All these things that are happening to him, they're not happening to others. So he is becoming the spokesman for everyone else to express their feelings and what they're going through. It could be that they're suffering more than Job or less. Again, it does not matter. But I cannot imagine anyone suffering more than Job, right? After all the things that we saw that have happened to him. But regardless, Job considers others. Let's stop here for a minute. Let's see if everybody is on the same page. If you have any questions thus far, are we all good? Because I'm going to read those first 3 verses again that we just read, 20 through 23. So verse 20, why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul? So you can see that Job is not just talking about himself. He wants to know why people see the light of day, why God allows people to see the light of day, only to live in misery, to live in pain and suffering. And life, to bring them to life, to the bitter soul, that their soul is bitter from pain and suffering. So he's shifting the focus from himself, and he includes others, fellow sufferers, fellow human beings who are experiencing pain. And again, he does not know who they are, and he really doesn't care. All he's doing is that he's saying, I'm not alone in this. In my pain and suffering, there are others who suffer as well. When was the last time that you were in suffering and you stopped to think that others are suffering at the same time? You know, you're in pain. Let's say you had a headache or a toothache, or let's not think of terrible things, right? Okay, oh, I have this headache. Oh my gosh, what I'm going to do? I'm going to take some, I don't know, Tylenol or whatever, ibuprofen and all that stuff. Did you stop to think, oh, you know how many millions of people right now are having a headache?
It's all about me.
It's all about me, right? It's all about us, right? You know, what is it, 2 weeks ago or so that I had a terrible headache? And honestly, I didn't think of anybody else. You know, I went straight for the medicine. I lay down and drank some water. You know, I just said, I need some rest until this thing goes away. Please don't make any noise. Turn down whatever music is there, TV, what have you. Leave me alone. Don't knock on my door. You know, no dogs, no nothing. You know, I closed myself to myself. And I did not think of anybody else who may have a headache and is suffering like I am, more or less. That's how we are as human beings. We focus on ourselves. We do realize there are other people out there, but we don't sympathize at the same time with them. But that's what Job is doing here. Yes, we do. We do. But only when time has gone by and we say, oh, it could be worse. You know, or you call up somebody who had a similar situation with you and you commiserate. Okay? But we don't put our pain aside to think of others. That's what Job is doing. Okay? So he's recognizing others who are suffering and he speaks on their behalf because he doesn't know what they're saying. And Job, being a righteous man, right, he's asking all these questions on their behalf. So, in other words, the problem that he's experiencing, that is the pain and suffering, okay, is not unique to him. Neither is the answer unique to him, the answer that he's seeking. Why? My God, why is this happening to me? And so he is asking all these questions. He's saying what he's saying on behalf of all of us. And we right now are not in pain and suffering, right? Is anybody in pain here present? No? We're good? Okay, maybe you have a little arthritis or maybe you're a little stiff or something, but hey, big deal to what Job is suffering, right? So we need to know how Job is treating his situation, his problem, what he's feeling, what he's going through, so that we may consider others who are in pain. More so when we're not in pain. As we said, when you're in pain, first you think of yourself, and then at some point in time you think of others. But when you're not in pain, are you think of others who are in pain? We should.
Can't help it without watch the news,
Only when you watch the news. But if you're strolling out there, if you're walking on the beach and throwing the ball to your dog or fishing or whatever, are you thinking of others who are in pain?
Not as much as when I'm reminded.
Not as much when we're reminded.
Yes, but not as much.
Yes. It's not enough. On our own, on our own, we do not think of others in pain. We don't think of others enough, others who are in pain. But when we are reminded, absolutely, of course, especially the ones that are very close to us, they're dear to our heart. Okay? We have a relationship with them. Strangers, not so much. We watch the news and we see people die on a daily basis, whether it's accidents or wars that are taking place throughout the world, disease, what have you, killings. We say, "Oh, how sad! Oh, how bad! Oh my goodness!" You feel something in your heart, and as soon as the scene changes from the news that you're watching and the switch to sports and your favorite team won, hey, you forget all about all the bad things that are happening in the world. Unfortunately, that's how most people are. Not Job. Not Job. What else is Job realizing here? That there are others that are suffering like him. Give me a minute, I'll have a sip of my coffee while you think of it.
Are you talking about verse 21?
No, so far we said that Job is realizing that what is happening to him is not unique to him. Okay? And he relates to those in pain, no matter whether he knows them or not. What else does Job realize while he's going through this ordeal? And you can focus on the verses that we read, verse 20. Remember, he's speaking on behalf of everyone here, everyone who's suffering. No?
He's bringing up the whole death thing.
Yeah, he's bringing up the death, and that's in verse 21. Maybe we should read that verse and then ask the question. So, verse 21, how long for death? But it does not come. And search for it more than hidden treasures. You know what that means? How long do I have to wait for death to come? Because he knows he's dying, and others might be in a situation. In other words, I was born, God allowed me to see the light of day. Now I'm suffering. Okay, how long before this is over? I mean, why am I not dead yet? That's what Job is saying, by saying, but it does not come, right? He waits for death to come to put an end to his pain and suffering, but death is not coming. And search for it more than hidden treasures. Can you imagine somebody searching for death more than somebody's looking for a treasure? And they're happy to find death than to find treasure? Or death is the treasure they're looking for? Okay? So these are questions. So the second thing that Job is realizing here is, Yeah, he's exactly. He's rejoicing in some way in the fact that he's going to die, but he can't wait for that to happen. He's seeking death, and we mentioned that last time. We're quite specific to that. So the second thing he's realizing is that his perspective, his outlook, his angle is shifting from himself. Instead of saying, why is this happening to me? So instead of asking that, he's saying, why is this happening to others as well? He's no longer just concerned for himself. So in the middle of his pain and suffering, he shows compassion for others, which is amazing.
Yeah, he's asking a question, though, in a sense of, will it be joyful when I do obtain it? Meaning when he dies?
When he dies, yes.
He's asking himself his own, he's like, in third person.
Yes.
Will it be joyful for
Right.
us?
For us.
Once again, not just me, but
for others who are in pain
as
and
they,
suffering.
If they could obtain it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's truly asking a question by the use of the term why. It's not a statement. Like you asked us a question, why? That's more of a statement, versus a question of why God why is it this way? Versus talking to his friends. Steve, why do we wait for the fresh? Why do we fish during this time of the tide? It's because I got the answer already. So when I read that, I thought he's not telling his friend, he's not asking his friends a question or asking God a question that he wants the answer, but he is, versus asking it rhetorically because he already has the answer. But he doesn't have the answer.
He does not have the answer.
Because this is before Abraham.
Correct. Correct. He doesn't know.
Yeah.
He doesn't know about God, God that revealed himself to Abraham, and Old Testament, and then New Testament, the coming of Christ, and all that stuff. The law is not there. The grace from God as revealed, the prophets, the patriarchs, and so forth. Yeah.
He truly is pondering.
He's pondering. Yes.
But he's pondering with his friends. He's not asking God. He's pondering with his friends.
He's expressing himself, his frustrations, what happened to him, in reference to his friends being there with him for 7 days and 7 nights. Right? He knows he's not going to get any answers. He knows that. at least at this point. By the end of the book, he's going to get an answer. But right now, there's nobody there to give him an answer. Okay? Verse 22nd. I'm sorry, 22, and I said 22nd. 22. He rejoices exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave. Wow, there are people who rejoice, like Mike just said. They rejoice exceedingly, when they find the grave, when their life comes to an end. Okay? So he's asking on behalf of everyone, why on earth? What's the purpose? Is there a meaning to life? If somebody is born and they're going to suffer like that. Okay? Valid questions, very valid questions. Let me turn my page here. Let's read verses 23 through 26. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly fear has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. I'm not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. Now, he continues to ask these questions, but guess that these questions are directed towards someone else now. Who do you think is asking these questions? You see that in verse 23, God is there. He mentions God here. He doesn't blame God, but he wants to ask God these questions. Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden? Okay? And whom God has hedged in. God is not allowing him to die. He brings him to life. He doesn't know what life is going to be like. He doesn't know it's going to be pain and suffering. And there's no way out. He's locked in. Okay? So now he's asking God. Again, not blaming God. That's the crucial point here. Throughout this ordeal, throughout the book, Job does not blame God. He wants to have some answers, but he's not blaming God. So why did God let him see the light of day? Very valid question. Is there a meaning to life, to living? And this is often a question that people pose who are suffering chronically. Let's say someone either is born handicapped, let's say with some disability, or somebody, because of an accident, they become disabled, some disease, for various reasons. And they live chronically with pain, or they suffer in some way. They lose their, eyesight, or lose arms, legs, what have you. Life was normal until they had this calamity, this catastrophe, and the rest of their life is just a pain in life. Let's say they're confined in a wheelchair, or bedridden, or, goodness, we can think of all kinds of difficult situations that people live with, right? So when people in such situations, they ask this question, what's the point of living now? Why should I live? Why doesn't God allow me to, he has a hedge around me. I'm searching for a treasure. I want to die. What's the purpose? Why does he keep me alive? I don't offer anything to anyone. Others take care of me. What's the point? Valid question. And people ask this question when they really reach a point in their life that pain, distress, suffering is at the highest degree. There's There's nothing beyond that. I mean, what they feel is to the max, let's say. So Job, once again, is asking on their behalf. And what do you think is the answer? Job wants to die, right? What's the point of me living now, right? Might as well die sooner. I know I will die eventually, but
Is he suspecting, even though we don't know at this point? He doesn't know at this point, going back to your comments about God revealing himself.
yes, he does not know that at the very end God will come.
That there's more to death than we realize? Or is he
To
purely
death
sad?
itself?
Well, he does not, right now, he's looking at death as an equilibrium.
Yes, it will level everything.
So
It will,
lower
you'll
the
be
gap.
saved, safe and no pain, no nothing. Yes.
But being Job and his love of God, he's not, is he? I'm guessing, it sounds like he's not questioning that there's more than we realize after death.
He does not know.
He's not suspecting, like, maybe what we think happens, there's more to it, that God has a better plan, a bigger plan.
Only
Yeah.
because he's going through the suffering.
He's not looking for his own answer of, this is what we think about death. Everybody in the world, this is our basic understanding, equilibrium. He's not pondering, I think there might be more.
Maybe I was wrong.
Yes.
Maybe I was wrong.
Which there is, because
Yeah.
we'll find out later on that there is more. He's not foreshadowing that maybe he suspects there's more, that God has a bigger
Yeah, he
plan.
does not suspect that there's something after death.
He's purely just.
Yeah, it means that all things will
he's asking,
cease.
Why would this be happening?
But Father, I not to interrupt, sorry, Mike.
Well, no,
But I get that at the beginning. But I think, or at least what I'm thinking of from what Mike said is like, okay, enough is enough already. Wait a minute. Maybe I got it all wrong.
he's saying that's not the answer though. He's still living in the.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
He's still,
equilibrium. He's not suspecting
Okay.
that there's a greater glory.
only because he's going through all this suffering.
Yes.
And he's wondering why he's not dead yet.
Because there's no point right now. To him, I'm suffering. What's the point? I mean, what
So therefore,
pain can it bring me now?
what I'm saying is, but could he second? Yeah, okay. Well, I got it.
Yeah, to him, there's no meaning in suffering. Just like as we,
Normal for most people.
and that is normal.
Right.
Exactly. More so to Job, normal, less to us, and we will explain that a little bit because we live under grace now. We have the revelation of Christ. Job does not have any revelation. There's no Abraham. There's no Moses. There's no prophets. No Messiah. No nothing. So to him, he says, "What's the point? There's no point. So I might as well die." Okay? So he finds himself, as we said, in a similar situation to those who live with chronic pain and suffering. So, in the midst of all this, again, he's thinking of others, not just himself. Okay? And he thinks of others who believe that if they find death, okay, is like finding a great treasure, as one of the verses said. Okay? And this pain and suffering really is not going to produce anything to him. So now let's make a big parenthesis here and see how pain and suffering makes more sense to us in the New Testament, us who live in the New Testament, versus Job, who lived even before the Old Testament. Not just the New Testament, but before the Old Testament. Okay? What do we know about Christ suffering as a human being? What do we know about Christ becoming incarnate, assuming flesh and bones, right? Assuming our fallen humanity and suffering. His passion, crucifixion, burial, all these things are terrible things in terms of pain and suffering, right? Christ experienced that. Okay? Now, in this, this was foretold to the Israelites in the Old Testament, from Abraham all the way to the incarnation of Christ. And with his incarnation, that took place, right? The pain and suffering took place. So, to those who lived within the Old Testament, it was known to them, not explicitly, but it was known to them that the Messiah will be a suffering servant. And this is described in the book of Isaiah in chapter 53, the suffering servant. Now it's in prophecy. So the Israelites did not fully understand that their Messiah is going to suffer. They thought that the suffering will be Israel collectively. You know, like the servant, in other words, will be the chosen people, and not Christ himself, not the incarnate God, not the Messiah. So they had a sense that there will be pain and suffering, and that will translate into salvation, but they never imagined that their God, the Messiah, will endure pain and suffering. That was one of the reasons, you know, we're not to go any further with this, but one of the reasons that when they saw Christ on the cross, hey, come down. And what is this? You're not God. You're not the Messiah. It's impossible. How can you suffer? You know, if you're going to be our king, how can you die on the cross? I mean, but Job does not know any of these things. No one has told him that if we proclaim Christ as our Lord and Savior, we're going to suffer as he did. He has no role model, let's say. Nowhere in his life anybody told him, guess what, Job? And this life is pain and suffering, but if you endure through it, that will lead you to God. That will lead you to salvation. So Job is enduring all this without knowing the benefit, without knowing why. So he has no answer to his pain and suffering. We, on the other hand, we have an answer. Because Christ has said, you know, if you follow me, right? You know, deny yourself, pick up your cross and follow me. So from the very beginning, Christ promised the cross. He didn't say, you know, deny yourself, follow me, we're going to be partying all day, you know, through eternity. He didn't say any of that. He said there will be a cross. And how do we understand a cross? A cross to bear. Okay? And so we have to recognize Job for enduring this more than anyone else. Because we know Christ. He did not. He did not know the benefit of carrying a cross. So that's another amazing thing here about Job, which means that we cannot judge Job as we're studying the book, the material that we have studied up until this point, and more things that we can see as we continue. We cannot use our own beliefs, the Christian beliefs. We cannot use the teachings of our faith and the standards by which we are going to be judged to judge Job, because he does not have the fullness of the revelation of God that we have. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's read a couple more verses here. I think we read all the verses until the end of the chapter, but let's just focus on them individually. Verse 24, for my sighing comes before I eat. Okay. I mean, what's the point of eating? I'm sighing, I'm suffering. I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, even if I eat, it will be hurtful to me, it will be painful to me. You know, my insides are starting to deteriorate. You know, so that's more suffering. and my groanings pour out like water. I mean, he groans. I mean, it's the, the water, the flow. So it's a constant thing. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me. Okay? He feared that his life will come to an end. He feared that, but it's not happening fast enough. And what I dreaded has happened to me. So what is he dreading that has happened to him? He's not going to go quickly.
We all fear that.
Yeah.
We all want to go quickly.
And in all of this, God is not there. No answers from God. He's not blaming him. But God is not giving him any answers. Okay? I'm not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. So his suffering is continuous. Continuous. So, let's see if we have any questions regarding the things that we studied this evening. Let's consider again, and we'll have a little discussion here. Let's consider again how we, as human beings, when we experience pain and suffering, how do we deal with it? What do we do? Huh? What's that?
Everything we can to relieve it.
Precisely. That's the first thing that comes to mind, right? What can I do to relieve pain and suffering?
We don't embrace it. We don't embrace it.
We don't embrace it. We don't embrace it. We try to ignore it. We're trying to cover it up. We're trying to take medicine. That sometimes medicine makes us numb.
We also pray.
Yeah, we do. But what's the first thing that we usually do? What I'm saying, the first thing that we do is when pain comes about, we say we don't want it. And we're trying to get rid of it. Okay? When we realize that it's not going away, obviously, we pray, we take medicine, we seek treatment, what have you. But our society in general, more so now than ever before, since we have advanced in medicine, the very first thing that we do is we want to kill the pain. Medicine, and I don't know how far back we can go. We said, here is medicine for treatment, for cure, whatever. Now we call medicine painkillers. When you were growing up, was that term readily used? Painkillers? I mean, we say, what was the normal term? Medicine, even,
My generation.
yeah, but
Aspirin.
a generation before that,
Maybe it wasn't as pronounced.
it was not as pronounced as it is today.
Right.
Right now, we want to kill the pain. We want to kill the pain because we don't want the pain. And when the pain is killed, right, take those opioids and whatever it is, people get addicted to it, and and some people die from it. Thousands of people died every year from opioids, right? And it's not their fault. They're just addicted to it. They take it for a normal, I don't know, a toothache or something, a surgery, back pain, what have you, and they get addicted, and some people's system cannot endure it, and people die. It's not their fault. And others, of course, abuse it. Okay, they become dependent on it, like doing drugs, let's say. And opioids are drugs, okay? But in the sense of taking drugs by choice and not because they ended up with some surgery or something, to take opioids. But what do we do once we kill the pain? Right? We forget about pain and suffering. Why we suffer? We don't question it. Because if there's no pain there, then the suffering is useless. There's nothing to teach us. And pain and suffering is given to us, it's allowed by God so that we can learn something. What did we learn tonight about Job? What was the first thing that Job realized?
He's not alone.
That he's not alone. And he's starting to speak on behalf of others who are suffering, whether he knows them or not. In other words, pain and suffering taught Job, or revealed to Job, or make him to realize to turn to his fellow men. And by the way, there's nobody around him, right? Just his friends. There's nobody suffering around him. If there's somebody suffering, they're far away. He doesn't know where they are and who they are. It doesn't matter to Job. So his pain and suffering caused him to have compassion for his fellow men. We, on the other hand, take a painkiller and we forget others who are suffering. And when we're cured of whatever we have, right? Surgery is over, whatever it is, some headache and whatever, then we'll go back to normal. And we don't think again of others who are suffering as much as we should, but only when we are reminded. Now, we need to be reminded on a daily basis. That's why in our daily prayers, we don't only pray for those that we know. We don't only pray for our family, our friends, our church family, but we include all those who are suffering, whether we know them or not. This is a great lesson that Job has taught us this evening. Okay? In the midst of his pain and suffering, in the midst of seeking questions, then he gave answers to some of our questions without us even asking the question. All right. We're coming to a conclusion this evening. Something that you would like to ask out of these verses that we study, or the entire chapter, chapter 3, because next time we're going to shift into a different, we're going to change gears into something else. Probably going to talk about the friends of Job, because the next chapter, it's the conversation that his friends have with Job.
One quick question.
Sure.
It was kind of the three sections, right? Why was I ever conceived, born? Why did this die birth come? And then now, why can't this come to an end? The third section is kind of where he goes from the I to the greater,
The we.
to the we.
Yes.
Are we saying that's, at this point, he kind of makes that revelation, or is this the natural flow of things? I wish I'd never been born. I wish I'd died at birth. I wish I would die now. And everybody else, a lot of other people are in the same place. So, is that where he makes that epiphany that everybody, there are a lot more people than just him at that last section? Or was it all there? Just the last section is kind of shows Job felt that way before this. This was not his revelation. He already felt that way about other people? Or is this where he expanded his horizon?
Yes, his horizons were expanded at this point. At this point.
For suffering all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Which means that when people endure pain and suffering, okay, they become wise. Okay? We think that wisdom is gained by reading a book, somebody telling you how they discover something, right? But true wisdom is when we endure trials and tribulations. That's when God speaks to us. And this is what's happening with Job. Isn't that amazing? And we don't want pain in our life. We don't want suffering in our life. It does. It does. It opens our minds. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you say, well, I have to suffer. Well, no pain, no gain, right? We know how it goes if you're an athlete and, your body has to feel physical pain in order for your muscles to expand. If you're a bodybuilder, right? You work out and you cause pain to your muscles by lifting weights, but that pain causes your muscles to expand and you get stronger. Right? So the same way that this happens to our body, the same way that training, pain, suffering, whatever it might be, it trains ourselves. It trains our very being. It opens horizons, as Mike stated, okay? And that's how God's wisdom is revealed to us. There's nothing easy in this life. I mean, if you're looking for the easy stuff is not going to teach you anything. Nothing. Easy come, easy go, right? So, but the things that come to us and they're tough to deal with, when you receive them, when you say, okay, if this is what God has willed, and you may not know the reason why God has willed this, right? I mean, specifically, we know overall why God is allowing this, but you do not know the specific reason that is happening to you right now at this point in time, but you willingly receive it and say God has allowed it, and you lean on God to make it through, not just with your own strength, for our strength is very little. Yes, we can take care of a headache, but other things that cause us a lot of pain and suffering, then we turn to God. So when He steps in, when we allow Him to step into the situation and help us make it through, then we gain that strength. Then we receive His grace. There are two ways to make it through a trial: with God and without God. Then, plain and simple. The fact is that you're going to go through the trial, no matter what the end result might be. If you choose to do by yourself, it's going to be extremely painful. And at the very end, you're going to gain nothing because you've been rejecting God. Like, God did this to me, and, why am I suffering, and so forth. If you choose to go through it with God, then God will help you through it. And at the very end, you're going to know who God is more than you knew before. All right, let's conclude this evening with a prayer. And we will continue next Tuesday, okay, at 6:30 in our usual time. And we're going to conclude with the ode, the prayer of Saint Simeon the Righteous, who received Christ on the 40th day when he was brought to the temple. He was presented to the temple, and Simeon the Righteous received him in his arms, and he offered this beautiful ode, beautiful prayer to Christ, to God, for he saw with his very eyes and held in his very arms the Messiah, the Christ, who is the suffering servant, according to Isaiah 53. Now let your servant depart in peace, O Lord, according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the presence of all peoples, a light for revelation to the Gentiles and for the glory of your people, Israel. Amen. Have a good evening, everyone. Drive safely back to your homes. There we